All right, guys, welcome to season 2, episode 5 of Inside the Huddle. Here we are here with Coach Adams again, and Coach, bye week last week, but you start 3-4 this week. Can you kind of give us a recap of the bye week and how the team did and what y'all really executed well on?
Well, we just went back to fundamentals, things that we definitely struggle with in non-conference, and we had a week full of that, man. Just getting back to the basics and doing what we're coaching the kids to do, making sure they're taking the right step on the O line and hat placement and ball security, tackling, shedding blocks, getting turnovers, and sharpening up what we do on our base defense and running our base plays that I thought we did a poor job of some things in the non-conference, and I thought we did a really good job last week of practicing with good intensity and correcting our mistakes. And so I'm excited about seeing how that translates to Friday night.
All right, so moving on to next week, past that bye week, you start conference play with Jessieville. They had some good non-conference games against Mount Ida and Haskell Harmony Grove. What did you really see from them on film?
Well, they offensive, I think they're pretty good, and they're big up front on both sides of the ball, and their quarterbacks are really good. They put the ball in his hands 80% of the time. He runs the ball, and he ran it a ton against. They actually have two quarterbacks that play, number 10 and number 8, and number 8 might just be just as good of a runner as number 10 is. So if 10 comes out, he came out against Haskell a few times, got banged up a little bit, and number 8 went in there and just he just follows his blocks, cuts it up, and stays inside, and makes big plays. But their offense is a lot better than last year, I believe, after watching film. And Mount Ida was up 28-13 on Jessieville, and Jessieville kicks onside kicks almost the whole game, and so they recovered 2 onside kicks there late, ended up beating Mount Ida. Mount Ida had the ball on the 5-yard line, and kicked a field goal to lose 31-28. And then similar situation, Haskell Harmony Grove was up a couple scores, and you got to give it to Jessieville. They hats off to them. They battle back and find a way. Jessieville threw late in the game, threw a post route for a touchdown to pretty much win the game for Jessieville, and so they find a way, and they keep battling. They play tough, and I think up front their O line, they're physical, and so it's gonna be a battle. They're picked to be one of the top teams in our conference this year, and so we need to embrace that and go prove them wrong Friday night.
Yeah, most definitely. There is a lot of, in my opinion, the 3A4 is the biggest question mark in 3A. I think it's, could really be anyone's game. But I appreciate you coming on this week, Coach, and it ought to be a good game Friday night up at Jessieville.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 5 here on Inside the Huddle. And our guest this week is Mr. Clay Totty from Wynne. Coach Totty, how you doing this morning?
Doing good.
Well, it is so good to have you on the show. A very well-known and well-rounded high school football head coach, and you had the long stint at Rison, but now you're being a Yellow Jacket over in Wynne, and Wynne has been through a lot. You have been the coach that has brought them through that. But I want to backtrack a few years, and you played college ball at OBU, and you get the grad assistant job there at Henderson right after arch rivals there. Can you really walk us through your coaching career and what has led you to be a Yellow Jacket today?
Well, I was blessed to be able to play college football for Coach Benson. I probably couldn't have played for anybody else. My high school coach had played for Coach Benson, and anybody that knows or knew or played with Coach Benson knows he wasn't real big on recruiting. He relied on his former players, and he wanted them to send him people that they thought would be tough enough to endure. And so I was blessed there. I don't know that I would have got a college education any other way. I got to play for a Hall of Fame coach who was very detail oriented and made the most out of his situation, and was blessed to get to learn under him. And after I graduated, I was team captain my senior year, and he would call me to the field house and we would talk about philosophy and X's and O's and things like that. And I cherished that. I learned a lot from Coach Benson. And after Coach Benson. I was sent to Henderson State by Coach Benson. Actually, he was friends with Coach Ken Turner, which was kind of a unique deal where I had played against those guys the year before, the Battle of Ravine. And then Coach Benson calls me in the office and says, "Hey, you need to go over to Henderson and uh, coach for Coach Turner." And I learned a lot of football under Coach Turner. Coach Turner had worked for Coach Broyles and Coach Hatfield and Coach Holtz, and learned a lot of football there with him and those guys on that staff. And then I was blessed to go to Fordyce, my hometown, and work for Coach Jim Cox, another Hall of Fame coach, and learned a lot from him. And from there, went to Star City as a defensive coordinator. And that was a unique situation because everywhere I had been were real strong football schools, and Star City was known for basketball. And I was able to go there and work with Coach Happy Grayson, and we got that thing turned around and made the first playoff appearance, I guess, in 17 years. They hadn't been since 1979, and we made the playoffs in 96 and actually shared the conference championship in 97, which was the first one in 18 years. And at that time, went the furthest they had gone in school history to the state quarterfinals. So that was a good experience for me. And then that parlayed into the head coaching job at Rison, when I was actually the second choice. And um, the way the Lord worked was Coach Kent Baggett, a good friend of mine who actually came back and worked with me at the end. He got the job at Watson Chapel in mid-June, and really, I think I had got an interview because of Coach Parker, who my dad had played for. And the way the Lord worked all that out is I got the job there about midsummer and in 1998.
Yeah, and then you have the amazing, 25-year career at Rison in the way that the two state championships. Obviously, the 2001 was really big over Shiloh, who is now, it's crazy, a 6A school. That just doesn't seem right. You play them for the 2A state title, and then 24 years later they're a 6A school. That just it really doesn't seem right.
Yes, that was a great opportunity for us and a huge win for our program. Of course, Coach Malzahn was the head coach there. He's gone on and done great things in college football. And Rhett Lashley was actually the quarterback, who's the head coach at SMU. They had a lot of great players, and um, we caught them at just the right time. I tell everybody we beat them as bad as we could beat them. We beat them 1 point in overtime.
Yeah, 1 point overtime is definitely a statement win there. You battle them the entire game and then take care of them in overtime. But I wanted to hit on, we have one of your former assistants here in Coach Adams, our head coach, and he really, really, really talks highly of you and how you're a man of faith, and how do you try to bring raising good young gentlemen in your faith walk into the locker room every day?
Well, I think that is a calling, and I think if the Lord calls you, I think the Lord calls us all to different lines of work. I feel like I go to a mission field every day uh, in the public school system and in our society today, and that's something that I have to pray about every day, and I have to get in God's Word every day, and I start my day with that. And I sure fail. I'm a flawed man, but I try to be real with my guys. I try to let them see the good and the bad. When I say something I shouldn't, I try to let them hold me accountable, and I do the squat jumps just like they do. And I try to be real with them, and I was fortunate to be around men like that in my life. And every opportunity I get, I try to bring the Lord into it, because at the end of the day, the Lord's. I don't believe when I meet Him that He's going to ask how many games I won, but I do believe that I will have to give account for the young men that I was put in charge of.
Yes, sir. And you talk about those men that have been instrumental in your life, and I just from what I've read and stuff, your dad seemed like a very, very great man. And can you talk a little bit about the Fordyce Rison Trophy, with it being named after him, and what that game in general just means to you, being from Fordyce and then having the tenure at Rison.
Yeah, that was a very big game. Growing up, it was always a friendly rivalry. The towns were real close, and um, when we were at Fordyce growing up, we would root for Rison, and vice versa. Rison would root for Fordyce when us was playing the state championship game or whatever. But my dad meant a lot to me. My dad was a good man. He was my hero. His dad was an alcoholic and a World War II veteran, was actually kamikaze in World War II, and came back with a lot of scars. And my dad had 5 younger sisters that he basically had to raise. Their mother passed away when my dad was 12. Um, and he always told me that about the only thing he had in his life to be proud of was being a Fordyce Redbug. And he played for Coach Parker, who he thought the world of, and Coach Weed, Coach Whittington, all his coaches. They were major influences in his life. He would get up in the morning and he'd ride a bicycle and deliver papers before school. He would work in the lunchroom so his baby sisters could eat lunch. Back then, you didn't have free lunches. And then after football practice, he would go close the service station down. Um, and he was a man that was saved later in life, and changed his life a whole lot. The Lord changed his life, and he valued coaches. He valued preachers, and um, he was my hero. And he taught me to work hard, and he taught me to fight for everything you get and trust in the Lord. And there's not a day goes by that something he's taught me or that I don't use. Um, and That was a huge honor for them to name the trophy after him. There was a lot of people that probably felt more deserving. I'm sure, we didn't come from money. We always joked that, my aunts, in fact, this last weekend, we were joking about, they never allowed us out at the country club. We were poor people. We lived on the wrong side of town. But we fought and we overcome, and we didn't want handouts, and we didn't expect people to give us anything. We wanted to work for everything we got. And um, I think about that a lot, especially when I go over and play, about a trophy being named after my daddy. And he would talk about, he'd go over and he'd be the manager for Coach Parker, and man, he's just trying to survive. And so one day have that trophy named after him. And I certainly appreciate the mayor, Fordyce and Rison doing that. That was not my deal. In fact, I wasn't really big on it because I knew he would have been embarrassed by it, and I didn't want it to put undue pressure on me and my family. But it was a huge honor. I think it represented the trophy because he what he did and what being a Redbug meant to him, and he did a lot for that program, volunteering different things. And then when I went to Rison, he did the same at Rison. He was like a grandpa to those kids over there, and was always helping us do different things. So yeah, it was a huge honor for it to be named. I think it probably got took out of context in a lot of different ways, and maybe there was some jealousy from other people. I'm glad they did away with it from that reason, because he would have not wanted any animosity or any division. He was a very humble man, and he rooted for both programs.
Most definitely, and that just and, is a testament of what kind of man you describe your dad as. But in today's society, a lot of younger men struggle, with that father figure in their life, unfortunately. And you go to a situation at Wynne, and tragedy with the tornado. How do you apply those things that your dad taught you, and that, like, Coach Benson and those people had instilled in you, and you try to instill them in the young men after your entire football field is ripped up by a tornado and your entire town is destructed?
Well, I can see that the Lord brought me here for a time such as this. It's not something that necessarily that I thought I was signing up for, and certainly not something that I have enjoyed. But I believe that's the task that the Lord laid on me at this point in time in my life. And I do believe that's big, is that um, I think society today, we have a tendency to wallow, self-pity, and we're surrounded by people that will enable that stroke you and make excuses and limit really what you're capable of doing. Um, and I'm probably one of the last ones in that line, and probably I rub people wrong a certain way, but I wouldn't have got where I'm at in this life if I was any other. If I'd been raised any other way. I was also born with a rare eye condition. I had to overcome a lot of stuff for that. But you got to fight, you got to compete, you got to scratch and claw, you got to make the most of your situation. There's no perfect place in this world. There's never going to be where everything is ideal. That's not going to be till we get to heaven. So you make the most of it, and you scratch and you claw and you challenge people, and you try to teach toughness and mental toughness and competitiveness and perseverance and determination and embracing the challenge. Um, and you try to make the most of your situation. And I've been in a lot of that in my life, and I see that the Lord wanted me to have another challenge. To be honest, when I came to Wynne, I think Rison had gotten tired of me, and I wasn't really ready to get out. I still love coaching, and um, I thought when I was coming to Wynne that it was going to be a great opportunity, a better opportunity to that was probably selfish pride, but the Lord knew the tornado was coming, and He knew they needed a fighter, and they needed a guy that knew how to handle adversity, and um, that's the situation I'm in, and I try to lead those boys through that. Had some guys turn on that didn't want that. In our society today, it's at the tough sale. Had some guys leave, several guys leave, several coaches leave. Um, but the ones that have stayed, we continue to grind, we continue to fight, and try to make the most of it.
So now, switching over to, the football side of things, and you take just football as a general, not even just within the state of Arkansas, but a high school football scape as a whole United States. How have you seen, with you being, I'm not trying to age you, but have been around the block in high school football, how have you seen it change? Now with the offense you run, smash mouth, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I see it every Friday night with Coach Adams. But now everybody wants to throw the ball all over the place, and you've got Kevin Kelly throwing 3 different passes on one play. And how have you seen the style of game change since you got into coaching, after college?
Oh, it's changed drastically. You can go back to when we played Shiloh. Of course, they were nationally ranked at that time. They had every passing record in the state record books. I mean, they were the head of their time at that time. About the only one that were running the spread. I think Harding Academy was doing it as well, and they were just tearing it up with records. And um, yeah, so it's now, like you said, it's evolved to where we're one of the few running the split back, and there's still a few wing T teams, few split back. See the flex bone coming back around, but yeah, it's I think when you run a split back, you run a flex bone, you run a wing T, you have to be a lot more detail oriented. I think I'm not taking anything away from the spread. It has to be more of a unselfishness, more of a team concept, which is tougher to get a buy-in in society today. It's not the splash that you see everywhere, and it's not for everybody. To be honest with you, I think Rison got kind of tired of that. I think they thought they were losing out on some gifted athletes that were going and playing the spread at different schools, and maybe it could have helped them get to a higher level than maybe what we were reaching. Um, but I think it's a good life lesson. I think it teaches a lot of valuables that helps uh, young men become men. Um, but it's still very effective. I go back to Coach Parker. He told me this, and I guess this was 1996. He was head coach at Washita. Of course, Red Parker, who I'm talking about, he was head coach at Clemson in the 70s, and he coached my dad. And so I followed his career, and he was a help to me as well. And he was the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was on probation at the time. I think they had 65 scholarships, and they finished third his offense finished third in the SEC. I believe it would have been 91 or 92. And he told me that they called him in and said, "Hey, coach, you've done a great job. We appreciate what you've done for our program. You've made us competitive, but look, to go to the next level with our program, we're going to have to go to the spread. You know, the split back just doesn't sell seats." Um, and he told me, he said, "Son, if you want to stay in high school football, you can win a lot of games with this system. Now, if you want to go college, you're going to have to, learn some different type of stuff, some spreads and things like that." And, so he saw that coming, early 90s before it even hit high school football. Now, think about him today. Now it's pretty rampant in high school. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of change in my 32 years.
Yeah, most definitely. It's crazy to think that, in my short 18 years of life, um, I've seen a lot of, chunking the ball. Everybody, I went to a game um, this past Thursday night, and it was against two teams that just love to throw the ball. And I thought I was watching the biggest game of backyard football I have ever seen in my entire life, because they were just chunking all over the field. And they come out and they put quads on one side. And I'm like, what in the world? Because, I'm used to this thing that Adams run. We run the ball, pitch the ball, quarterback, keeper, that kind of thing. And then I go see that, and I was actually with one of our offensive linemen here, and he's like, "Man, these people they throw the ball all over the field." I was like, "Well, I mean, that's the offense that coach runs, and they have come up from the 8-man ranks, so they chunk the ball all over the place in 8-man, and then have tried to come up to 3A and do it." But yeah, it's crazy how much it does change, and I don't think it's just the play strategies and the schemes itself, but what are your thoughts? I ask every coach this question that I have on, is you have this thing of kid just going from school to school to school to school to get playing time. And me personally, I don't think it teaches the kid anything. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that bothers me from a standpoint, but I think it's probably a reflection of our society. You can watch how it trickles down from college down to high school. I remember Coach Benson telling me that with some of our meetings in spring of '93. And he said, "You've always got to pay attention to the levels above you." He says, as a college coach, you have to pay attention to the NFL. As a high school coach, you have to pay attention to college because it trickles down. And I think you've seen that in college, and you see that now in high school. But kind of the loyalty of school pride, community pride, it's kind of a lost thing. And it's a shame. I believe it's family oriented. The family structure is kind of dissipating, and you kind of see that in society. It's about me and what's best for me, and instead of we. And I'm thankful that I was raised by a man. Like I said, it was raising 5 sisters and me and my brother, and I'm glad he wasn't about him. I'm glad he was thinking about us, and we're all better for it. And I think that's a good quality. I think just because that's what's going on in society, I don't think that's what makes it right. I know there's successful programs out there that are living that way, and they're having success in man's eyes. And I'm very well aware of that. And I've suffered from that. I've lost players over that. And but there again, I try not to focus on them, just focus on me. And I'm thankful for the ones that I have, and we make the most of them. I think back to my 22 team there at Rison, and I was really worried if we'd have a winning season. And we went to undefeated, won the conference, went to semifinals, and and I think that was because we had those intangibles, those kids that their school meant something to them, their town meant something, they meant something to each other, they played as a team, they were unselfish. We're playing big games for playoffs, and we got kids vomiting out on the field because they don't want to let their buddy down. You got guys playing with pains, with shoulders hurting and ankles hurting, and that's a beautiful thing when you get that true team concept. It's harder to achieve in our society today, but it's still a very rewarding, very honorable thing that I still believe in.
Most definitely. And, now you find yourself, you go from Rison to the 5A East, with Harding Academy and Valley View as a coach. What do you make of that conference in itself?
Well, it's a very good conference. Harding, of course, has a lot of history. Valley View is a really strong program. Batesville has a lot of history. Brooklyn is really coming on strong. They're kind of like a Benton and Bryant from Jonesboro, where you start to get that movement. They're starting to get their facilities up. You can see them, what they're going to become. So there's some good programs here, and it's good football, and um, it's certainly a challenge for us with our numbers, facilities, things like that we're battling right now, but it's like the Lord speaks to me all the time, and He says, "Boy, I never really gave you a golden spoon. You've had to fight and scratch and claw, and so I gave you one more challenge in your life. So um, that doesn't intimidate me, those situations, because I know the Lord has saw me through a lot of times."
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to hit on, you had your three non-conference games before the bye week this week with, Marion, a very quality 6A team, and then Forest City and Lone Oak. What did you learn about those players that really truly want to be there in those three games?
Well, we played very hard. Marion was a tough defeat for us, but to be honest with you, I told our kids this. I think we had a lack of belief. I think that we got in that situation there, and we had the ball down there inside the 20 with a chance to win that thing, and we fell short. Man, I was so proud of our effort. They got, I don't know, 88 on the team. I think we were dressing out 42 that night, and a lot of guys going both ways, and uh, we battled with them. It just, some execution things. You got to believe when you get in that situation, you're going to win those things, and that's the good thing about a history and a tradition like Wynne is they've won big games before. They've got history there, and I think we'll get back to that. But I think from the standpoint where we were last year, where we got embarrassed by Valley View and embarrassed by Marion, and that maybe there was a little lack of belief that we belong with those teams. So I hope we learn from that. And then I think Forest City and Lone Oak showed us that we don't have a very, very big margin of error. You play Marion and everybody's like, "Oh man, y'all are pretty good," and then you play Forest City and Lone Oak, you get a couple of down, or you get a couple of guys with some pains, and some other guys have to step up. And so it kind of showed us that we can compete with anybody, but we also can get beat by anybody.
Yeah, it is, a tough conference with, Harding, and the non-conference really, like you said, you can beat anybody, but can get beat by anybody. And you look at, I want to kind of get your thoughts on 5A as a whole. Obviously, everybody believes Parkview is the team to beat. Obviously, they're in a league of their own, but you look at 5A as a whole. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, to be honest with you, I looked at that a lot when I came to Wynne, because that was the goal, was to be at that level there at the top. But about 2 months in, we had this thing called a tornado, and ever since then, man, I have been grinding so focused on us that I haven't really got to evaluate the state. It takes everything I've got. We get done with practice, we have a coaches meeting, and I watch offensive film, defensive film, try to get input to coaches, and we're just trying to make the most of our situation right now, and hopefully we can get that thing built up where we can be concerned with other teams in the state. But right now, it's everything we got just to keep this ship afloat. But I know there's some good teams in 5A. I know Parkview, very talented, and of course Bobby Bolden was actually one of my coaches in college, and I like to throw that around because he says he's not that much older than me. But I have a lot of fun with that when I tell everybody he's old, that he was one of my coaches. But I know he does a great job there defensively with them. And man, to have a guy like that as your D coordinator, and then of course Brad's had a lot of success. And I know Maul is very talented. I know what I read in the paper, but I like to watch it video and analyze it and things like that. And to be honest with you, I'm just not to that point with our program to do a lot of analyzing of the teams throughout the state.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. But I kind of wanted to talk about, you're in a sense of building a culture at Wynne, and you have the culture at Rison. And how would you, I don't want to say compare the two cultures, with obviously being two very different situations, but how do you make a culture, in a community where they're behind the football program and behind just those young men in itself?
Well, I'm blessed to be at both places that do love football. Um, of course, I had been at Rising long enough that I had kind of lost a lot of my support system when I came there. I had a lot of older men with old school values, and they valued the things that I taught and the things that I stood for. And you could kind of see that disintegrating there toward the end. The values kind of changed. And that's life. In a quarter of a century, a lot of people's values change. But I was blessed to be at a place that cared about football. It was a true football school, and being there 25 years, I saw that change to a certain degree. But at the same time, at the end of the day, football was important to the town and important to the school. And I think when you look from the outside, you feel the same thing about Wynne. It's great history here. It's had some great coaches. Coach Campbell had a tremendous run of success here. Coach Hill recently. Coach Pascal won a lot of ball games. First state championship in 1950. And I see a lot of the things that I saw at Rison. There's a lot of older people that really support the football program and our values and the competitiveness and all those things that I value. You can still see a lot of the things that I saw at Rison with the younger generation. Maybe they don't value it quite as much. But I'm blessed to be at a place that does care, and I've been blessed to be at places like that. And I've always encouraged my coaches. Guess I've had 7 or 8 going to be head coaches. Is that be selective about where you go, because you want to be a place that cares and will give you a chance to compete.
Most definitely. And those places just don't come up out of the blue. Like you said, history there at Wynne with Coach Campbell and things of that nature. But Coach Totty, I really do appreciate you being on this show this week, and it's been really fun. I don't want to say check something off my bucket list, but it's pretty close.
Well, I appreciate that. Makes an old man feel good.
Yes, sir. Well, I wish luck. I'm always cheering for the Yellow Jackets, and we'll talk to you later on, Coach.
Thank you, Dalton.
All right, guys, that right there was, as of this being recorded, which is Tuesday, September 24th, the winningest active head coach in the state of Arkansas in high school football. So awesome to sit down with him and get to talk Arkansas high school football. That was Clay Totty, the man over at Wynne, Arkansas. Been through a lot, as y'all heard with that podcast, but I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Please like and subscribe. We are really trying to get this thing traction and just going, so by the time the playoffs roll around, we have got a mass following. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. Be sure to go check out Hartzell's Farms and Excavating, and then Razorback Camper Sales. They are longtime supporters of the show, and that will wrap it up for Season 2, Episode 5. We will catch y'all on the next one of Inside the Huddle.